Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing? Abigail, you want to say hello to the people?
Hi, everyone.
We're going to be joined very shortly by a special guest. You've probably seen from the promo that we've been doing over the last few days. We're just going to give a couple more minutes for people to join. Hopefully, you've been with us through the previous programs. We've just had some amazing conversations about fearlessness and how we can really kind of roll into 2021 with a spirit of ambition and faith in God to really achieve the things that we need to achieve. So it's been a really good day. We've heard from our global youth director, we've heard from our division youth director, union, and obviously Anthony from the conference. So it's been a really rich conversation. We've had a lot of honest conversation around lots of topics, such as how our attitudes and stances should be towards LGBTQ community, and how our stance should be towards people of other faiths, our stance on evangelism to other countries as well as here in our own backyard. So it's been an amazing set of conversations, amazing words as well that we've heard today. So it's been rich and very blessed. So I hope you've been a part of that. I'm going to bring Shantel into the studio now, and then we'll give you a few more minutes to come on. Hello, Shantel.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Abigail and Thomas.
How are you?
I'm doing good. It's early here, but I'm doing good.
What time is it over there?
It's 10 a.m.
Mhm.
So Sabbath school time for you all, I'm sure, right? That's right, same.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's normally when the argument is beginning to kick off in the Sabbath school. Abigail, leave me and my pronunciations alone.
No,
I can see it coming.
I have nothing to say.
We're just going to give you guys a couple more minutes to just share the link. Tell your friends we're on. Tell your family we're on. It's going to be a great conversation. Anybody who's interested in using social media for stuff to do with the gospel, please send them the link and join in the conversation. We want this to be as interactive as possible. So please be in the chat. If you have any questions, any comments, any observations, any humor or jokes, or just banter in general, the chat is the place to be. And then we'll hopefully have a really, really great conversation. I'm joined today, obviously, by my co-host, Abigail Vikai.
Hi, thank you for giving me such a warm welcome.
You're most welcome. She's one of my fellow Reading Area 5 homies, so it's good to be here with you and doing this. Thank you for accepting, although I had to pull you by the scruff of your neck.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a
pleasure. But thank you in any case. And then obviously we're joined by Shantel. All of us know Shantel. We probably know her best with the glasses, the black jumper as God.
Yeah.
She's been inspiring us and giving us jokes on Instagram and TikTok. But what you may not know about Shantel is that she has a really strong academic background. I think she has a ministerial background. She has a PhD in biblical Hebrew and Aramaic. So it's humor at the front, but it's big brains in the back as well. And so we love that. We love that balance. And she has a master's in divinity. She has been a student of the scriptures since she first came into the faith about 16 years ago. And her favorite Bible text is Deuteronomy 30:15-20, which can be summarized as choose life.
Okay.
Yes, so good.
Oh, fantastic. I should do this for a living.
Doing it right now.
And so we're really, really honored to have you here. A lot of you will follow Shantel on Instagram or TikTok or both. And so you're very familiar with her sketches, her skits, and just the humor that she really kind of brings in sharing the faith and sharing the gospel. And she's obviously had great success, especially over the last few months. Her page has blown up, and she deserves all of it. The work that she does is amazing. And so we just want to have a conversation with you, Shantel, and just really kind of understand how you've traveled through your journey from before you were doing this, academia, social media, so on and so forth. And obviously how you've been fearless in your pursuit of your ambitions as well. So, that's in keeping with our theme for the year in the youth ministries. Welcome everybody who's watching. I can see we've got a good number of viewers now. Again, keep sharing the link and keep telling everybody that we're on. You already have some fans in the chat there. They love your work, Shantel, so fantastic. So we want to begin with some icebreakers, just a little bit of fun, just to sort of settle down and get to know each other. Abigail.
Okay. So my first couple of questions, because food is life.
Facts.
If we're talking, if we're talking pizza, are you a pineapple on pizza or just definitely not kind of on pizza kind of girl?
I love pineapple on pizza. I am a pineapple.
Oh no. Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay. So the next one is, I don't know how I feel about that, but I'll move on. I'll move on. If you were stuck on a desert island and you could only take 3 foods or like meals, what would you take?
Oh, 3 meals that would just like constantly replenish.
Yeah.
Yeah, like okay, that I wouldn't have to cook, but they would just replenish. Yes. Okay. I'm taking lasagna.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking like I don't know if you guys have it over there, but I'm a vegan. But let's just say it's an island where if eating animals wasn't a big deal or your body, I would take curry chicken with white. Yeah, I would take that, and then I would probably take kale, like lots of kale, because kale's loaded with vitamins. So it sounds so random.
Balance. Exactly.
I suppose you need the kale to balance off the lasagna.
Yes.
That's a good meal.
Yes.
That's a good combo.
Thank you.
I hope you're not having kale smoothies on its own.
I do. That's what I do every morning. I have like a huge kale smoothie every day.
How do people swallow kale on its own without lasagna or pizza going down with it? But that's cool. I hear the meals. That's cool. Okay, so we've got some music based on. Tell me what your top 3 favorite albums have been of all time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my gosh. I have to look at my phone.
No, have a look at your phone. That's cool.
Look at my phone? Okay, that's cheating.
That's fine. No, you can look. Look at your phone.
Okay. Off the top, and people are gonna hate. It's okay. But I really, really, really enjoyed the Homecoming album by Beyonce.
Okay,
it was so good. It was just so good. And then I would say the other one, another great album. It's kind of off the grid a little bit, so I'm not sure who's gonna know it, but it's this album called, I can't find it. I'm not gonna be able to find it.
We like hearing about new music. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's like I don't got it. Wait, okay, wait, hold on. I might have it. Wait, do I have it? No, I don't have it.
I'm gonna wait because
it's called Last Summer by Barnes Boulevard, and it's just like really good music to create content to. It's really good music to do homework to edit to. It's a really nice. It's smooth, really nice. Okay. So those would be my first 2, and then I don't know. Oh, Bob Marley, Greatest Hits.
Okay, cool. Can't go wrong on a desert island with some Bob Marley. Okay, cool. And I've got a final one. This one's gonna, I'm gonna test you a bit on this one. If you were a wrestler, what would be your entrance theme song?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Can you circle back to that one?
Oh, I would do "Don't Hurt Yourself" off the Lemonade album by Beyonce. I would do that.
I like it. I like
it. Yeah. Great questions, by the way.
Well, now you know. Now you know what you do if you change career to be a wrestler. You're gonna make that decision real quick.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. We're now gonna sort of head into our more kind of the meat of our conversation. I feel like we've gotten to know each other a little bit better now, so we can have a nice, honest conversation. Obviously, we kind of met you and have become familiar with you through your work on social media. Mm-hmm. And obviously, for those who have only just started following you very recently, you've obviously been doing a lot of stuff. You've enjoyed a lot of success recently, and we hope you get even more. But we want to kind of go back a bit further, a bit earlier into your experience with social media. What was your early social media experience like? Did you have a particular objective? Were you just there to have fun? What was that like?
I think the first time I got on social media, like Facebook has always been like, okay, you post a picture, let people, it's like life updates, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the first time I got on Instagram was when I was a chaplain at PUC, which was like, I think it was maybe 2014. That was the year I got on. And when I first got on, I was just, trying to I don't even know what I was doing. I was posting pictures that were random. Look, I'm standing by a tree. Like, I was look, here's me with a puppy dog. Like, it wasn't anything super significant or content driven. It was just, I'm just here. And I think over time, I grew to understand that it would be, that it just, that many people were using it for different purposes. And I had never thought about using social media to do anything else other than to just be about my life and just, posting about my life. That's pretty much what it was initially, was just, I'm just posting about my life. And whoever wants to say something can say something, and whoever doesn't, it's fine.
And so did you find at that beginning point you began to, did you understand the potential of social media perhaps for the work that you're doing now? Or is at the beginning you had no idea what the potential of it could have been for you?
No, at the beginning I had no idea like the potential that social media had in terms of like, I didn't think of it as a kingdom resource. You know what I mean? I didn't think of it as an evangelistic tool. I didn't think of it as a platform. It was platform, evangelism, kingdom resource, never entered my mind. It was very much just like, this is another place where I get to post pictures about myself and do a mini blog. That extent of what social media was for me. And and it was almost competitive. Like I was like, oh, let me see how many followers I can get, but just like I post my like little weird pictures and like that's what it was, but it wasn't like I'm using this to meet a need. It was like more using this for myself whenever I feel like it, kind of thing.
Right. I've got one quick follow-up, Abigail, if you want to come in after. What was the first social media platform you were on? Because I remember my earliest experience of social media was like High Five or Black Planet. I don't know if you guys remember. Well, Abigail, you were still in the uterus when we were using these things.
How old is Abigail? I didn't know.
I'm 25.
Oh, you're crazy.
I was on High Five. I was on High Five.
She was
you were on High Five. Okay.
Fetus, but she
unbeknownst to my parents, but I was on.
So I remember those kind of early iterations of social media, which were entirely about look at me, music on the thing. Like there was no real kind of agenda on there, I suppose, apart from just having fun with your friends. What was the first platform you were on? Was it Facebook, or were you there in the earlier iterations?
I was actually a High Five user, and not only High Five user, but I was MSN Messenger. I was big into MSN Messenger. That was huge. Like meeting somebody and then talking to them and then giving them a fake picture of yourself. That was the scam. That was what it was all about. So that was my first. And then High Five as well. Like that was cute. But again, like these platforms were like for a lot of us, for me, was just about uploading a picture and like seeing who wanted to talk with you, who wanted to engage with you. It was this whole brand new world. That after you did your homework, after I did my homework, I could go on the computer, kind of thing.
No, I remember those early days where you couldn't be on your you couldn't be using social media and somebody be on the phone at the same time.
No.
It was dial up. You had to.
My dad used to ring me, cuss me, and like, get off the computer. I need to use the phone. I'm like, oh right, yes, I'm sorry.
So if we fast forward a little bit to when you begin to kind of see social media as something that could be used as a kingdom tool. When did that happen? When did that switch begin to happen? When you began to realize the potential?
I want to say like I think it was the moment when I left PUC as a chaplain. PUC was going through they were going through some huge financial issues, and they underwent reduction force as a result of those they were impacted like greatly by their finances, and which like enrollment was just dropping really, really fast. And I just remember this was the first time, I thought about even kind of using it as anything, but like, I just shared my story about like what it was to be a female pastor, and to not be like fully connected to a network or a system, but to like, when reduction force hit, like, it was like, I dropped into a net, like an empty net somewhere. Like, I just didn't have, any resources. And so I remember putting myself out there and just sharing like my story. and it just resonating with so many other women in ministry. And that was the first time I recognized that, oh my goodness, this is not only a place for me to just post pictures of myself and just, showcase my life, but it was also a place for community to engage and for people to feel connected. And that really struck a chord within me, was like, look how globalization, look how time and space are shortened, and how people can connect so easily, by just, posting a story. And the thing is, I was like, is anyone going to even read this? But I put it out there because I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was like, I don't know where to work. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I just put it out there. Like, this is my story. Do you guys know anybody that's hiring, here? And it was just so many, instead of, I didn't get hired through that vein, but there were so many women that were just, sharing their story as well beneath, about being let go quickly, how hard it was to find a job in the conferences. They don't have places for women where they can go, with churches that were set up and ready to receive women as pastors, and so it was just a lot of conversation began to spark on that post. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. People want to talk and people want to share. And man, I'm all about creating a space to do that.
So I'm just going to jump in here, and just off the back of what you've just shared about the realization that you had, that actually there is another space that women can reside in, that women can feel empowered in, and you moving from having this role as a chaplain to maybe taking social media a bit more seriously, what would you say some of your fears were when you first started out?
Social media, it wasn't like I woke up one morning and I decided to do it. My experience with social media was organic. Like any gift of the spirit, I really believe it's organic. So like, it wasn't like I was working hard to like, let me get noticed on social media. It was that God gave me influence in that space over time, and it kept growing. And so the more that it kept growing, the more I kept doing it, because people were engaging back, and I was hearing stories that were so important. I was able to use my platform to share those stories of other women and tell kind of the hurts and the wounds and the experiences of other women. And so I wouldn't say that like I intentionally was like, I'm going to start taking Instagram or any of this stuff or Facebook or any of that seriously. I left being a chaplain at PUC, and I got hired as a local church pastor at a church in the DMV. And then I was working at the North American division level on a project called Growing Young. And so I was actually more busy with those things, pastoring, and then, working with the Growing Young project, the Growing Young cohort with the North American division. I was more busy with those things. And I was just doing social media on the side, although I was recognizing that there was an audience there. And so I would start like kind of writing posts, like my pictures became like my content, like my earliest content became more about like posting a picture, but then having like huge blocks of writing underneath it, like devotional thoughts, like exegesis, like experiences under the post. And like people were reading it and people were responding. And so I just was like, this is really, really interesting. But it was something I was doing over on the side. It wasn't until I started doing young adult Bible study, and things started to shift in my local church context, that I made the move to make social media like my priority. But like with I really do believe that working on like social media is in the vein of a gifting for an evangelist, or like it just like, and as a pastor, like your influence just moves into that vein as well. It's like, but again, it's not something I had to work at. It was just something that was there and happened. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess even through feeling like you came to social media organically, felt like God actually made room for you to excel in that space, did you still have any hesitation to kind of take a step into that space? Were there any things that you were kind of doubtful about or unsure about?
Yeah, I would say for sure, like initially, so just a little bit of, just to be completely transparent. So I've been on my own since I was about 16 years old, like have my own like job, apartment, like just like that's been my life. So being under the umbrella of the SDA church and being under the umbrella of a local district or even the division, like I authority was not something that I responded like well to, like, because I've always made my own decisions, and most of the decisions were in line with the culture of the SDA church. So up until a point, right? And then I think when I was like, oh, this is like one of the, the harder conversations that came up in my young adult Bible study group was same-sex marriages, LGBTQIA, sex before marriage. What does the scriptures really say about these things? And just diving into those topics with them in Bible study was so illuminating and so like just life-giving for them. And so I was like, man, I should take this to like YouTube. Like I should take the stuff that we're doing to YouTube, because people couldn't get to all of our sessions, or they want the stuff because they would miss 1 week and they want to know what was going on. So I was like, how can I create content that's engaging and that's creative online, that would pull people in and that would hold their attention and honestly would teach. And so when I started doing that, I did it on my own. And I did like with a few people, friends, colleagues. And then once it went up, I was like, someone said to me, aren't you worried what the conference is going to think about this? Or like what your senior pastor is going to think about this? And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that, And then the next day I was pulled into the senior pastor's office and I was talked to very sternly about it. So, then the next time I thought about posting, I was very like reticent and like fearful, and like my content became a little bit more curtailed because I was like, oh, I don't want to offend anyone, right? But initially there wasn't any fear. But I would say as long as I remained a local church pastor under the SDA umbrella, I was always constantly aware of the leaders that were around me, and just kind of staying within the red lines that they prescribed, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I guess I just want to delve a bit more into that, because this is something our young people reflect on a lot and feedback to us, which is they have ambitions and they have things which they feel God has called them to do, or conversations they feel God has called them to have in a particular way that is relevant for their generation and their circle of influence. And the fear is always, if I do this in this way, if I follow my convictions, inevitably I'm going to end up offending or butting heads with the establishment or with my local pastor or elders. How did you internally overcome that thing in your brain that says, oh, I don't want to post that in case they get upset? How did you get past that bridge?
Yeah, that was hard. That was hard. Like, and I'm like thinking, like mapping out in my head, like what to say, what not to say here. But like, I'm just gonna tell you.
Be comfortable. Just do your thing. Yeah.
So like, I went through a situation in my local church pastor where something was done to me that was just kind of wrong. I'll just leave it there. And then as a result of that, I was, one of the things that they do over here in the United States is when something happens with an associate pastor, they put you in seclusion. So they remove you from that context immediately. And I had just started there. I was only into my third month when this situation kind of happened. And it was on the fault of the other person. But either way, they still pull you out. Right. And I was left in seclusion for 6 months, where they said I wasn't allowed to speak to the church members about the situation. I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. And it was it was really hard because I had just started the young adult Bible study, and it had erupted. We had 50 young adults coming consistently into my home to study scriptures. They cut that off. They canceled that, and then I wasn't able to really talk with my members. So social media was my only outlet to communicate my side of the story. And so to even just say my goodbyes, which I didn't know was going to be a problem either. Right. So one of the things that I did was just said, like, online, I was like, I want to say goodbye to all my, members, because it was told to me that they were moving me to another, location. And there were three other churches that wanted me. So I felt very secure, but I didn't know that doing this was going to be stepping outside of the, the lines of, particular cultural, ideals within the conference. And so I just said, I'm sorry that this has all happened. I'm sorry that I won't get to say goodbye in person, but I'll be in the conference. And that was the moment where, like, I think, like, I just decided after like several months of being in seclusion that I was just going to like use my voice to tell my story and not be afraid of like anything. But I didn't think again that anything was going to happen. But then the more that I realized that the conference was trying to suppress kind of a little bit of what, like, what would have made the conference look bad, the more I was like, there's a lot of institutional just stuff that's happening that's not okay. And social media became the place where activism could actually take place and conversations could happen. And so moving beyond that space, though, I realized that there was a generation online on like in these like kind of like backlog TikTok, Instagram, Twitter spaces that were looking for community and that were looking for Christ, but no longer felt safe in a church context. And for me, like my heart has always been like, I just want to see millions of people come to the kingdom as a result of my, like just my life here on earth. And so I just decided in my mind that I just wasn't going to care. Now that's a lot easier said than done, because I do care a lot about what people think. I do care a lot about what my leaders think of me and what, you know, the officials in the conference thought of me, because I had, you know, as a woman in ministry, you work so hard to get to a certain place in ministry. When you arrive there, you don't want to mess it up, and then you don't want to mess it up for every woman coming behind you, right? But I realized that the style of evangelism, the tools, like this, I remember an official saying to me, they said, you know, we're not calling you to be on social media. We're in the business is of pumping out pastors to pastor the local churches, to keep the tide rolling in. And I realized in that moment that I was like, my calling is much bigger than that. And God was calling me out of that, and God was calling me away from that. And so I knew that I was going to be ruffling a lot of feathers by, you know, just continuing ministry online, but I just decided I was going to do it anyway, because, you know, there was just so many people on the other end that just needed it, you know. And I think the greatest affirmation was, I think in that week I had done a video, and a girl who was Hindu actually ended up coming to the Lord as a result of that one video. And it was like the biggest moment in my mind to say, like, yeah, I'm afraid of what people are going to think about me. I'm afraid of what my leaders are going to say, other leaders are going to say, my colleagues are going to say, you know, but there's something greater on the other side of this. I couldn't see the greater. So this was a little bit of blind faith, like just walking in, like, I just don't know what this is going to look like, but I just know that, you know, there's something here. And so I just kind of kept using social media, and, you know, I heard people talk about me, but I just didn't care, you know.
And I think that's such a powerful thing, because one thing that I'm hearing centrally to your story there is, I mean, you call it blind faith, but I think there is an element of being able to see really crystally what your calling actually is, or what your mission actually is, I think, or what your purpose. And you may not know which platform to exercise it on, to manifest on, but I think what I'm hearing is an understanding that what you're called to do is a conversation between you and God, and not something that is via an organization per se, although it can very well be. Because I think if you had maintained that perspective, you wouldn't have been able to come out and kind of do your own thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say, like, the time that we're living in right now, like, you guys are going to experience, like, there's organizational, institutional wants, needs, and desires, and those are going to pull on you. But you've got to, I mean, with respect and with honor, right? You've got to know where to put that on the shelf, when to put that on the shelf, and say, like, I understand this is what they're requiring of me, but like, I also sense a need here, and I like just knowing how to like respond in those spaces, like, you know, Bishop, I'm sorry, you know, Elder, I'm sorry, like, this might have offended you, but look at the work that I'm doing over here, like being able to have those conversations. And some people are just not going to understand, and some people are not going to respect it, and some people are not going to want it, and they're not going to like it, and they're not going to like you. But you've got to know who you are and what you're about and what you're called to. And I think when, you know, we talk about this idea of fearlessness, that's what it's wrapped up in, right? Like being able to say, like, I'm not afraid of men and I'm not afraid of women. Because here's the thing, there were several people that wrote me off and that were like, no, like, this is crazy, this is wrong, like, we shouldn't be doing this, it's like, it's disrespectful, it's outside of our cultural norms, who are now like huge followers and huge supporters because they've seen the result, they've seen the harvest, right? And so you cannot debate and argue against fruits, right? Against the fruits of your labors. And that, I think, that's one of the things that I was blessed enough to see show up in my ministry very early on, was that there was a huge response. And so it wasn't easy to write that kind of thing off after a while. So people fall in line, but sorry.
No.
Great.
That makes perfect sense. I completely understand. I guess my follow-up to that would be, you know, there was a moment where you switched from just posting pictures and who would like it to beginning to understand that there could be something else happening here. What would your advice be to young people who, you know, for a lot of us, we're kind of using social media for fun and for jokes and just to for memes and to have fun with our friends, which is cool. But for those who maybe feel a higher sense of purpose or calling over their life in general, how do they switch how do they switch the narrative that they've been putting forward on social media from, I guess, from want of a better way of putting it, frivolity to something that has a bit more purpose? How do you transition that?
I would say it does start with like what's happening backstage, like in your life, like, you know, like sitting down with God and saying like, God, like where are you calling me? What are you calling me to do? And if it is social media, that's great, because that's the space right now to be in, right? And I would just, number one, just encourage people to be flooding that space with Christian content. There needs to be more Christians dripping Christian content into the feeds of people that are just online, you know, because there's not a lot of that. People are dripping, you know, funny jokes and memes, like you said, and humor and like crazy videos and prank wars, but like there's nobody dripping Christ, you know. And I wanted to be that person dripping Christ into people's feeds and onto people's timelines. And so I would say like sitting down with God, like on your one-on-one times, and figuring out like, what am I called to do? Is it hair? Is it food? How can I integrate? Because here's the thing, you can chase kingdom in many different ways. I'm chasing kingdom as a pastor online, right? As a comedian online, but it doesn't just end with being a pastor online. I'm also online. I'm also an actress online, but Christ has infused all that. You can do the same thing with hair, with gardening, with diet, with basketball, with whatever, but infuse Christ into all of it. Allow people to see that Jesus is bigger than the church, and Jesus is bigger than the pulpit on Sabbath or Sunday mornings. You know, he's in the hair salons. He's on the basketball courts. He's in the garden. You know what I mean? He's in the kitchen. He's in the living room. He's in the video games. Like be a Christian video game guru. You know what I mean? But embed Christ into all that you're doing. I would say, like, first, you don't have to dismiss your passions. You don't have to dismiss your talents or your interests. Those things can merge and they can dovetail with the purposes of God and what Christ is calling you to do. And then I would say, practically speaking, look at your page. Like, how many people are following right now? What is your audience? Like, who are the people that are following you now? What is your audience? What are the numbers like? What does your page look like right now? Does it reflect your audience? Does it reflect what you're trying to do? If not, you may need to scrub your timeline completely and start rebuilding it and start with content from the bottom up. And here's the thing, some of you might lose followers, but you'll gain new followers. You know what I'm saying? So it's just about, I would say, starting backstage and figuring out, okay, what am I about? What do I want to do? Mapping that out, putting it up on your wall, recognizing that, and then I would say at the core of that, after you've mapped it out on the wall, in your journal, in your notebook or whatever, I would say then recognize that your success is not linked to your identity. You have to adopt a growth mindset and recognize that this is going to take time. Some people blossom and they bloom all at once. Some people grow in small stages. It's micro growth. Some people it's macro growth, right? But just recognize that you're doing what God has called you to do and stay consistent and be faithful, and God will bless. And then there are just practical steps I would say, like scrubbing your timeline, researching what hashtags you should use for your brand, recognizing just the audience that you're working with, and then I would say then fine tuning your craft. So it's one thing to be a Christian video game guru. It's another thing to be a Christian video game guru who only does Sega, or who only does PlayStation, or who only, you know what I mean? Because there are millions of people that are only into Sega and not into PlayStation. There are millions of people who are into reality TV shows. I'm a Christian responding to reality TV shows. This is what I do. You know what I mean? I take the content and debunk it. You know what I mean? But I also post all this stuff about Jesus Christ. You know, I'm a Christian that, you know, I'm not just focused on food in the kitchen, but I'm vegan, or I'm keto, or I'm, you know, but just niche yourself. So there are the practical steps, and then there are the really kind of like, you know, personal one-on-one God stuff that's helpful to somebody out there.
No, absolutely. And I love what you're saying about being subtle in how you're doing your evangelism, because you can infuse, or as you said, drip feed Jesus into almost all of your interests and things that you're into, and your gifts and things that you're good at. Because I think a lot of times we get tripped up because we think evangelism is that explicit sharing Bible text and preaching a sermon. But actually what you have shown us in a very real and powerful way with your platform is that something which can make you laugh for 10 minutes can make you think for 30 minutes after that. And I think that kind of understanding that evangelism can be diffused into many different avenues is such a powerful way to think. Obviously, I want to move the conversation on slightly, and Abigail will come in with some questions. Let me just read some comments that are coming in online. I love Shantel. She keeps it real and cute. Happy Sabbath. Out of adversity, powerful movements come up. Somebody was saying how it was sad to hear your experiences, but out of that adversity, something powerful came. Thank you for your witness and for Thank you. I witnessed doing people's nails, playing gospel music. Yep. It's another way that that could happen. We can exist in almost all corners of social media. Social media does not run out of space. I think that's a very good point. God operates outside of the pulpit too, or even more so. So let's not limit our minds as to what evangelism can look like. And I'm glad you mentioned the hair products for reasons that will remain unmentioned for now. But the question the question that I had is, obviously social media, there's a lot of stuff out there being said about the negatives of social media, impact on mental health, impact on people's time management. It's a huge distraction, etc., etc. How do we strike the balance between limiting our time on social media so we're not distracted, but also being able to draw out of it all of these inspirational and beautiful things that exist on social media as well? How do you strike that balance as a content creator?
Yeah, so I almost never go on social media to passively consume content.
Right.
As a content creator, I would challenge you to almost never go online to passively consume, content, whether that's to laugh or to watch something, whatever. Make your laughter time, your enjoyment, like a series on Netflix or Hulu, or spending time with your family, or going on long walks or whatever, or cooking, or beading or knitting or whatever. Make it something else that's not related to, I don't even know what beading is, but just dazzling. I think that's what I was thinking of. That's totally unrelated to social media, right? The only time that I'm on social media is if I'm number one posting and writing content, if I'm like producing or editing content, and if I am actively consuming content while I'm on, actively and intentionally consuming content while I'm online. So what I mean by that is I will go through TikTok and I will go through hashtags and I will go through sounds on TikTok, and I will go through the same thing on Instagram and Reels and IGTV, and I will research, what people are doing, what things I can recreate, what things I can overdub, what things I can oral, or what things will trigger ideas. So I'm on social media, I have my notebook out as well, and I'm taking notes and I'm taking ideas and I'm writing. I mean, that's how this last video that's gone viral, it's everywhere on the internet right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, how it got to that place was I was on TikTok looking at these trends, and I was like, this is hilarious. I was like, this is so funny. And I was like, man, there's no woman doing one that's like representative of us. And I was like, what's a good one, God? And I actually asked the Lord, like, Lord, give me one that's like really, really good. And he gave it to me, you say you're a good catch. Well, then catch me then. You know what I mean? So then, and then I added little things that would make it funnier and take it up a notch. But that came from me actively engaging content with the intentions to recreate. I'm never online just consuming content blindly or just fill time or fill space. That'll kill you. That will like drain you, because it'll feel like your playtime is also your work time. And then I would also say that I have a cap on how much time I spend on social media every day. And you would think as a creator that I'd be on social media like all day long. Absolutely not. I do 10-minute increments, and I only have an hour each day, both on Instagram and TikTok. That's it.
So an hour altogether for all.
An hour altogether. So an hour for Instagram and an hour for TikTok. And TikTok, usually I'm never in the comments responding because I get hundreds of thousands of comments. So I can't respond to those. But on Instagram, I can. So I funnel people from TikTok over to Instagram because that's where the conversation is happening. So, and
for those of you who haven't seen the last one that Shantel is referencing, I've just put it in the comments. It's hilarious. You should definitely go and check it out and follow her page on Instagram and TikTok if you're using TikTok. Abigail.
So just to kind of move the conversation along, when people often refer to the Bible as, or the time that the Bible was written in, as quite patriarchal, men at the top of society. And sometimes when we're reading the Bible, it's important to remember the context in which it was written in as well. So I guess my question is, as a woman, when you're reading the Bible, trying to get inspiration, or you're just, doing a daily devotion, or trying to hear from God, how do you take inspiration from the Bible within the context that's in as a woman and apply it to yourself?
Yeah, I teach a course on this called How to Read the Bible Like a Boss, and we deal with this exact question. You know, when you're reading, let's just talk about the Old Testament. Let's just stay with Old Testament, right? When you're reading the Old Testament, you are being presented a narrative that has been written, redacted, edited, and then translated by men. Bottom line. And so there is a bias. There is a filter on it already. But you know what I find most striking is that although there is this lens, this very male, patriarchal, dominant lens over the text, is that you cannot help but notice how strongly some of these matriarchs pop out in the narrative. And so, you know, you're reading one person's kind of like even the Bible. The Bible is several people, but predominantly men, right? Their take on how things have happened. But women show up in those narratives as well too. And I think there's nothing wrong with searching out and seeking scriptures or passages that speak to women. There's nothing wrong with searching out and seeking and researching the female attributes of God, the feminine attributes of God, because they're all over the text. You know, God as a mother, God as a woman, God as a girl. It's all over scripture, you know, researching how much femininity and how much womanness is in scripture. It is overpowering. You know what I mean? Which just tells me that the truth, not that scripture isn't true, but that men are writing with their own lens and their own filter and their own bias, but that, you know, there's always three sides to every story, you know, his side, her side, and then the truth, right? It's like, you know, I'm sure Eve would have more to say about what happened, right? And Moses ultimately, she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate too. You know what I mean? He throws that in there for us to listen. Like, she wasn't in this thing alone. He was standing right there, you know? So there's all that all throughout the narrative. You just got to read. I think with women, like, we just got to slow down a bit and recognize, okay, what role is the woman playing here? You know, I teach all of that in my course, but yeah, there's a lot there. But it can be hard. I will say devotionally, you know, playing Russian roulette with the scriptures and opening up to a passage and saying, I'm just going to read this today devotionally. I try never to do that. Most of my devotional time is spent, honestly, mostly these days in prayer or worshiping in the singing worship music and like spending time bathing in the presence of God. I may pick up the Bible, but the Bible is my work. So I'm old, like that's what I use for my work. So a lot of times it can just feel a little bit draining to pick that up. And I've just done seminary, and it's not that I feel like I know it, but it's just my relationship with God is in a different place where I'm interested in communing with him in a more experiential way. And I feel that happens more through prayer and through worship. And I would just challenge people to even just try that, you know, try moving your worship experience. You know, I'm not saying disregard Bible, because you need the Bible, but I'm just saying try shifting in that time to see, you know, how God wants to show up. Because I find like I hear him more now than when I'm concentratedly trying to figure out something and get it for my life that day. It's like I'm trying to force the text to mean something. And that's not how it works. God ministers to us when we're in his presence, and the Spirit speaks for us for particular circumstances in that way. And so instead of forcing scripture to meet you where you are, you know, just try communing with God and meeting him and listening to how he's showing up. And yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I love the fact that you how you just phrased that last bit there about how you feel like you hear God more when you shift your worship to more about bathing in the presence of God and reflecting on the things that you've read. Because I think recently I've been thinking more about how we are constantly, whenever a topic is being discussed, the reflex is, let me show you the Bible text. Let me show you the Bible text. Let me show you the Bible text, which is fine. But I always, my experience, especially recently, has been I find more. I get more when I'm reflecting on what I have read. So for me, it's like, why do we not have more conferences or more programs where we reflect on the digested result of having read the word? Because if we're talking about, I don't know, marriage, all of us can do a word search on Google and find the text about marriage. It doesn't mean anything. What means something is, okay, now you've read the text, tell me how it's ruminated, how it's digested through your mind system, so we can actually see how we apply and gain the nutrients, as it were, from what we're actually reading. So that's a really powerful observation. Abigail, did you have more?
Yep, I had one more question, still kind of directed to the women. So for all the other women that are out there that might want to, who feel just as you were, they're called to lead, called to minister via social media, what advice would you give them? Or even what other aspects should they be aware of, like potential barriers, potential blocks that could hinder them in kind of getting the word out there, evangelizing in the way that God has called them to?
Yeah, I think so. 2020 and 2021 is the year of the woman, and it's the year of the woman of color. You know, so in terms of online spaces, you're already winning. You know, you just got to get in the studio and learn how to work your tech and learn how to work your software and just do it. Just lean in and just do it. Just teach yourself. Everything that I've done, I have taught myself. Nobody came alongside me to help, to assist. Everything that this platform that I built, it's me and God. That's it. You have everything you need to do it and be successful. Do not be afraid. The Lord is with you. Go forward and do it. But I would say, in the same token, understand the culture you're working within. You know, and I don't know all the ramifications of the South England conference. Is that right? South England. Okay. Oh my God. I said that and I was like, oh, it might not be it. Understand, the culture there, what things are, if you're not trying to make big waves, have some conversations with your youth leaders. Just let people know what you're doing, what you're about. Tell them you want them to support you. You know what I mean? Just invite them into the conversation, invite them into how, they can be a part of encouraging you and supporting you on that journey. Just have that conversation. But I think in terms of online, there's not many barriers. There's not many barriers. I think the barriers are going to come with the institution on the other side. And I guess if you're a leader, then you need to have those conversations with your conference, like ministerial director, whoever it is you report to, and your your senior pastor. If you are just a member, then I think you have free reign to do whatever you want to do. I don't think anybody's going to be checking you or like looking at and being like, this is not okay. Your skirt is too short in this video. I don't think any of that. I will say this though, understand that for the moment that you start putting yourself out there, you are building a brand. So you never want to go contrary to your brand. So if you're showing up as a Christian, just understand that there are many Christians on the internet and they will come for you. If you've got to know who you are. So for me, I don't know if this is per se a barrier, but someone cussed on my timeline saying something like they're like F God, right? And I was just like, God is big enough to take all your F's, basically, right? Now I'm okay with that because I know the brand that I've created. My brand is a voice that is unrestrained by dogma and doctrine. You know what I mean? A voice that is continuing to learn, a voice that wants people to laugh, and a voice that is educated and academic, but is also relatable. That's my voice. And I'm okay with my voice being what it is. It's not Priscilla Shearer, and that's okay. I don't want to be more Priscilla Shearer. It's not Paula White. I don't want to be Paula White, right? You know what I mean? It's not Andrea Trusty King. I don't want to be any of those people. I want to be myself. But you've got to be able to answer the community and the audience that's responding back to you because you want to be engaging on those platforms. So you just got to know who you are. That's the only real barrier I see online. But for women right now, it's your time. This is your time to shine. Get out there and create content, hashtag that joint, and just chase it. Just chase it. And don't be afraid of failure. Failure comes to teach you powerful lessons. You may put a post out there and only get 2 likes. You learn from that post. Was the video blurry? Was the content not good? Did people engage? Did I write back? Did I respond? These are all indicators. Learn from it and grow every time. But the only barriers I would see would be on the institution side because we work in, the Adventist church it's a little archaic, you know what I mean? And they don't want to move forward because they don't know how. They're afraid of, what's unknown and what's new. And so you've got to, it's a brilliant time right now to begin teaching not even older generations, just different generations within the church about, the powers behind social media, that it's not all ugly, that it's not all terrible, that people are coming to kingdom as a result of it. This is where people are at. And in order to do ministry, you've got to meet people where they're at. And unfortunately, they're not coming to churches right now because of COVID. But even when there wasn't COVID, our churches were dry. They weren't looking like people were popping up. You know what I mean? But it can show up online where people will engage. They have questions. I'm telling you right now, people have so many questions about the Bible and about Jesus and about God, about LGBTQIA, about safe spaces, about transgender, about, diet, Levitical laws, about all that stuff. People have so many questions. So it's when I look at the internet, when I look at social media, I really hear the words of Christ, like the fields are ripe, but the laborers and the workers are few. And they're few because we're restricted by mandates and by legislation and by red tape. There was it's few because we're afraid. And I really just want to encourage people. It can be fearful because it is the wild, wild west. Anybody can come for your edges at any time. If you say something out of your mouth that sounds crazy, it's going everywhere. So there's a responsibility, but there's such a great reward. And so you recognize that you're gonna make mistakes. Don't worry about cancel culture. You get canceled on the internet, you can rebuild your life on the internet. I've seen it done time and time and time again. For people for so many people, the world ends and then it starts again in the morning. So you just get on there. You work hard, you try it, you engage, and you just don't be afraid because it's the right time for it. And I can't be the only one out there talking about Jesus. You know what I mean? It's not gonna get done. But God has given us this tool. God has given man wisdom and mankind and given us the internet for this purpose because he knows that most of us ain't getting on a plane to go to anywhere else to teach or to speak or to share, the gospel. So comes the internet,
I think it's such a powerful thing that you say because just this morning I received a message. There's a female pastor that I really love and care about here in our conference who was expressing her frustration at yet another. We've seen a lot of these events that are being publicized, and it's like it's a conference on faith, and it's 26 speakers, and they're all men. And it's like, do we not think that women have any knowledge about faith or whatever? So she was kind of communicating her frustration at yet another program where there seems to be an assumption where that only men have expertise on this particular topic. Do you think that the internet could be a liberating tool in the sense that instead of us waiting for an archaic organization to catch up and maybe feel as maybe women do know something about faith and we can involve them on the thing, maybe just go and do your own thing on social media? Is that an opportunity that you would encourage?
Yeah, I would say adopt my mentality. I'm not waiting on anybody to tell me yes. I'm not waiting on anybody to tell me yes. And that's a good and a bad thing. I've got to grow in that area, right? Because there's some people that say no and I still don't like it, right? But there's a part of me that's it's me and God. It's me and God to the end. So I'm gonna live that truth. I'm gonna live by that. But yes, I would say that is a frustration for I think many women in ministry. And I will tell you this. Deborah, or some people say Deborah, but I say Deborah. Deborah in the Old Testament, she doesn't go to temple, she doesn't go to tabernacle and try and steal, the attentions of the people there. She doesn't show up in the courts in the temple, try to look at me, the men are over there, but look at me. She doesn't do that. She sits under her palm tree and the people come to her. And I want you to just capture that image because I think it's so important to recognize that nobody's going to give you a platform. Okay, that's not true. Some people may give you a platform, but there may be there's definitely, and if they give you a platform, there's definitely a ceiling on it. What I will say is that nobody gave me platform. I went and built my own platform with God. That's what I did because I was tired of men deciding my course, who I was and what I was going to do. They wanted me to be a pastor in some backyard church behind a whole bunch of forest area in the cut where nobody comes. Just so I can keep the tide rolling in for you all. You know what I mean? I'm not a cog in a machine. None of us are cogs in a machine. Each of us are called by God, masterpieces of God, unique with our own idiosyncrasies, called for a specific time to do things that nobody else can do but you. And if you fit yourself into a cog in a machine and be like, I'm going to stay the course because I'm a woman in ministry and I've gotten this far and they've accepted me. And okay, so those are the check marks. You've got all those. Now what? Because you can't grow very far from there. Your whole world is going to be preaching engagements, if you even get any. Because as you saw, there's 50 men on the flyer, maybe one featured woman. We have a woman this year. It's that's your world. That's your world. But you can decide your path. You can build your own platform. So I would say social media is really a space where you can go and create an audience. And like Deborah, just sit under your own palm tree. You know what I mean? Create your own space. There is an audience. There will always be an audience, and God will always send you people because no one person can finish the work on their own. No one can.
Sorry, I caught you, Karen.
That's good.
No, I was just going to say here, my good friends at This Is Marriage UK, put it perfectly. This is the time for independence, which is a negative to the institution, but a positive for you. And I think that's a really good summation of what we were talking about there. Last year we had, I don't know if you know her, Dr. Olive Hemmings. We had some fantastic. She's from Washington University. She's a lecturer there, but we had an amazing conversation about the subversive nature of the New Testament writers and how they were constantly subverting the cultural norms of their day. How do we recognize the means or the ways by which we can subvert the cultural norms of our day? Because there is a fine line at the beginning where it's difficult to distinguish between whether you're subverting the cultural norms of your day or whether you're, I don't know, maybe being seen as tearing down the institution, perhaps. How do you ride that line to eventually subvert something which is quite dispensable? Because I think sometimes we conflate the church and the word of God or God's will. And we think that if we follow God's will, it means following the church or it means doing the thing that the church wants. How do we separate between the two? I know this is a heavy question to
It's okay.
begin landing on. Yeah.
It's okay. I would say that you want to adopt a mindset that recognizes that the church is bigger than the institution. When you start to see the church as the world and not necessarily just a body of believers that dress right, talk right, walk right, act right, that Christ died for the world, that it wasn't a limited atonement for just people who are behaving well, but it was for everybody. When you begin to see the church as like, this is everybody that Christ has died for, then you start to recognize, then those hard lines begin to shift, to begin to move. And then I would say everything that you do as a creator online, everything that you do as a minister on social, in the realm of social media, you've got to do as a daughter and as a son. And if you're acting as a daughter and as a son to the Father above in all of your relations, you should not be going. There is no, there should be no like harmful, tactics.
Yeah.
So there is a way for you to be independent in ministry and still be respectful of the institution. And that is a fine line. And I do think that it is important to be respectful of the institution that you may be associated with, working under. It is important to be honorable. Christ grew in stature with men. You know what I mean? Like, it is important to be honorable to those that are around you. And there is a way to do it while at the same time recognizing your own divergent kind of career. I'm calling in ministry. And the only being that can help you with that is the Holy Spirit, because he's going to be the one nudging you as you're writing your posts and as you're responding to people. Don't say that, do say that. This is going to be a hard conversation. You're not going to please everybody here. This is not going to go over well, but I'm with you. You've got to be walking by the Spirit. And so, even just saying the right things is not going to get you far, because you can say the right things with the wrong spirit, with the wrong energy, and that can come across. So you never want to be, super destructive, in that sense. And I think there is a way to do what you're called to do without tearing down the institution. If the institution is going to fall, it's going to fall because of a number of systemic things. It's not going to fall.
Natural causes.
It's going to be natural causes. It's not going to be because one person started talking about how hypocritical, oh my goodness, couldn't get the word out, the leaders and the institutional leaders are, and that's a distraction as well. And that's something that I had to learn, because for a long time I was calling out things that I felt like were really, really wrong and really, really shady and abusive and sexist and racist, because that's all a part of our denomination. But I think over time, God was like, okay, like, you're done speaking truth to power. I'm calling you to do something else. And so just recognize that, you trying to tear down an institution, even if you're right, is a distraction from the souls that are waiting for your ministry. And that's that you got to keep at the forefront of your mind, is that there's a whole church waiting for you. There's a whole other community waiting for you. And just, be in partnership with the community and the institution until you can't no more, until, it's not feasible. But even then, separating, you can do that peaceably. You don't have to disagree in anger, and you don't have to disagree in hate, and disagreement doesn't have to be the end to relationship with the institution or a partner with the institution. There is a way to do this thing where everybody wins and is comfortable in what they're doing. And I would say if you arrive at a place where you no longer identify doctrinally or theologically with the institution, and that's maybe a moment where you need to separate yourself and just, you know, find another space or a place or group to associate yourself with if you need that at all, because it's not helpful to anybody when you're the only person yelling and screaming that the Sabbath isn't the Sabbath. You know what I mean? Like these people believe that. Leave them alone. You know what I mean? And so I think that's what I would say to that.
That makes a lot of sense. I love the fact that you said that it's not a zero-sum game. Just because you are going to follow what God has called you to do, it doesn't mean that the institution has to necessarily suffer as a direct result of that. I think you can follow your calling whilst respecting the institution, if that's what you've been called to do. Yes, Shantel.
And just to add on to that, you know, I started in the SDA church. I now work as a non-denominational pastor. It was the Seventh-day Adventist community. I mean, they're still on my platform. They probably make up a smaller amount now, but they're still a part of my platform. I grew because SDAs were sharing my content as well. You know, so you will always grow from the place from which you started, and you never want to burn all your bridges where you start, because then, you know what I mean? You always want it to be said of you, like, okay, this might have looked crazy, but I know her. You know what I mean? I know her character. I know how she was when we talked. I know how she, you know, you always want people to be able to speak well of you, even if they don't understand your ministry. But your character will always be the best tell for what you're up to, what you're cooking in the kitchen. Even if people don't understand, are you making a cake? Are you making lasagna? Are you making pizza? Are you making curry goat and rice? I don't know what you're making, right? And it smells funky, but I know you. I know you're Gordon Ramsay. Nobody questions Gordon Ramsay because they know who Gordon Ramsay is. So he can be in, you know, flipping ducks alive, and people would trust him in the kitchen because, you know, it's Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah. So, that makes sense. Abigail.
So I guess my last question, and this is even if you have any, because just from hearing you speak, you are very fearless. But thinking ahead into your next 5 years in ministry, do you have any fears moving forward? If you do, what are they?
Yeah, I do. Because I'm an entrepreneur slash pastor. And so a part of me worries, my fear is that I will get sick of social media because I'm already sick of it. So fear is that, so that's the thing, is that everybody wants to blow up on social media. It gets tiring. There are some days I wake up, I don't want to comment on any posts. I don't want to create content. I don't want to answer to these heads out there on the internet that I don't know. And I remember the call that God has given me, right? Like, okay, Lord, this is it's different, but this is Moses with the people. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, different packaging. And so I would say that that's one of my biggest fears, is that I'll get sick of it. Another one of my fears is that I may go viral in a very negative way.
Right.
Another one of my fears is that I just won't be successful, because what God has put on my heart is millions for the kingdom, and I do want millions of followers, but I want millions of followers because I want to glorify God. I want to unpack the character of God and the person of God in a way that people have never seen him before. And I want people to fall in love radically with that image. So a part of me is like, will I fail? But God's like, I even when I say that out loud, I know the Father is like, even if you fail, like I'm gonna catch you, and I'm gonna use it for my glory somehow. So I know that all of this life, all of who I am, I've got to let go of self, because if any bit of self in me, the enemy will pull at it and will tug at it and will destroy me, but if I surrender self and I just let God have his way, then, I know that it's all up to him. And so my fear is going viral in a negative way, failing at the mission of millions for the kingdom. And then being so sick of social media that I just don't want to do it anymore. And then it become a thing that I just gave up. But I'm pressing and I'm pushing. And so those are my fears. But even those, I'm like, you can't let the fear of what hasn't happened control your life, because then your destiny has already been decided. I want everyone listening to just know that, like, if I acted in fear, I would probably have 700 followers to this day and not be doing much with my life. You probably wouldn't even know who I am. And not about me, but I would have just been content to stay at a local church where I was preaching maybe once a month, running a Bible study. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are called to do just that. I would have been dissatisfied, and I would have been frustrated, and I would have been banging my head up against a wall. If I acted in fear, I would have never become a pastor. There were so many people that told me I wouldn't get hired. There were so many people that told me I wouldn't be successful, that they don't hire women in this denomination. If I was always afraid, I never would have gone up to the altar when I first came to the church. You know what I mean? I would have never become a part of the community. I would have never got saved if I was always afraid, because I was scared of the unknown. You know what I mean? There are so many things that would not have happened if I just acted in fear. And sometimes fear is healthy because it keeps you from things. You've got to sit down and figure out, what is this a healthy fear or is it an unhealthy fear? Because there's some things we should be afraid of, like fire will burn you. Right? But if God is telling you to catch fire, then you catch fire, and you trust that you won't be scorched and you won't smell of smoke like the 3 Hebrew boys in the den. You know what I mean? So fear is just another form of faith. And I've heard I know people, you've probably heard that 1,000 times, but it's another form of faith. It's just put in something else. And I just refuse to allow fear to control my life, to control me, to control what I say or what I do. And you should not either. You should not either.
That makes perfect sense. Shantel, I just want to thank you so much for the time that you spent to pour into us, for following what God has called you to do and being fearless in your pursuit of what God has called you to do. In doing so, we now have you and we can see you and we can be blessed by the things that you were doing. So thank you so much for that. I've put a link in the comments to Shantel's link tree. So please go and click on all of the links, follow all of the things, buy all of the things, and make sure that she does really well. My only fear is that if she blows up again over the next year, I can't afford her next year. And then
you will find a way. I will.
No, perfect. So, and I really want to encourage all of you guys that have social media accounts and with your churches or local areas, please contact Shantel. She has an amazing suite of services around giving you consultations on how you can grow your social media, workshops that she can come and run for your area or for your church around how you guys can utilize your social media better. She's an amazing resource, so please use her. Again, all of her contact information I've put in the links over there. The t-shirt I'm wearing is J. Angelo Supply. So please click it. I'm going to put the link into the one of our people as well. So I want him to win as well. So please go and grab a t-shirt from him too. When Sabbath is over, obviously we're not animals. When the sun is set, go and buy a t-shirt. But Shantel, do you have one last word to share with us as we close, a sentence to send us off with fire?
It's my favorite verse. I'll always end with that. The Lord says, I place before you today life and death. I call the heavens and the earth to witness against you that I call before you and ask you to choose between life and death. Choose ye life this day. Choose ye. Don't choose fear, right? Choose.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the audience who stuck with us and listened to the conversation. Those who weren't able to catch it, that's cool. Just send them the link and please make sure that they watch it on repeat and send to us their feedback. There's another business I wanted to promote today, but the owner is really dragging their feet with launching, but maybe next time we will.
Dragging her feet.
But next time I'll be promoting that one. But Shantel, this is going to be the first of many conversations we have in instances where South England Conference Youth Ministries work with you. So we look forward to a long and prosperous relationship. Abigail, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Doing this with me. Anytime, I'll remember that. Thank you. But guys, we'll talk again later. Please, 4:00. There's another program I believe now as part of the YLC programming. So please go on the Youth Ministries pages and click into the links for that and carry on watching some lovely and engaging programs. I believe House of Praise is going to be later on this evening as well. So please support that too. Amazing music from Area 5 and I think maybe also other areas as well. So please support them too. But thank you for supporting us, Shantel. Again, have a lovely day. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath, you guys. Love you all.
All right. Take care. See you later, everybody.